Good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder and this is BRN AM for Monday, January 4th, 2021. And our top stories today, how employers are using analytics for evidence-based decisions and predicting retirement risk. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Christopher Moore. He's the founder, president, and chief executive officer of Zeroed In. Chris, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Great to be with you this holiday season.
Great to see you. Let's dive in. I want to talk about HR analytics because this is an industry that has really blossomed, and you were there from the beginning. Tell us about the industry, the evolution of the industry, and then we'll unpack what Zeroed In is doing.
Sure. So the whole concept of business intelligence and knowledge factories within the business has been there since the early 90s, but it's always been tied to the financial side, the manufacturing side, the big tied into the big ERP systems to help drive outcomes. And it hasn't been really till recently that HR has kind of stepped up to the plate. They like to say trying to get a seat at the table or the boardroom because as you'll easily hear roll off the tongue of any CEO, our people are our most valuable asset, right? Well, this whole concept of making better people decisions comes from having better insights. And in order to get better insights, you need data, right? And you need history from which to look at trends and look at patterns and leverage that. And of course, with today's technology and the evolution of artificial intelligence, machine learning, that data that's been collected by both small and large employers has become even more valuable.
And Chris, when we talk about the data, I just want to be clear on this. I mean, we're talking about data from, I'm assuming, payroll systems, human resource systems, point of entry systems, databases, right? These all feed into a system like Zeroed In to do the analytical work.
That's right. There's if you think about the life cycle of the employee from hire to retire and even some points outside of that, there are different processes that employers seek to automate, and they're using software systems in order to do that. So whether it's applicant tracking, job posting, the whole entire onboarding through orientation, and then so that's kind of the attraction side. Then there's the what you might call the activation side, right? So this is like the 3A model, the AAA model. Activation. How do we activate our new and our existing employees so that we get the most from them? Many people call this engagement, right? How do we get them engaged? And there's different systems and processes that they use, and then there's a whole management of the employee from promotions, demotions, transfers, what we call employee movement. And then the third A is that attrition, right? How do we reduce attrition and turnover and keep the good people? There's obviously always this cycle of the workforce that we want to move out to bring in new talent. And get rid of things that are stagnant. So it's through the attraction, the activation, the attrition. And those are kind of the big cogs in the wheel that employers focus on, and they're using software technologies and SaaS systems, as software as a service in the cloud, to leverage those. As a result, they're collecting all of these data points through their mobile devices, through their workstations, and very few have been leveraging that over the years to help them make better decisions. Is this employee well-being software that we've invested in to make our, help our employees feel good or improve their mental health? Is that really working? Is that reducing turnover as we expected it to? Is that increasing engagement in the workforce? So without being able to pull all of this data together from these many times disparate systems, they just have to make gut decisions.
And And Chris, you mentioned at the beginning in your opening remarks talking about what this is. You talked about artificial intelligence, and there has been breakthroughs really in the creation of AI and the implementation of AI. Have you really seen it? Has that been you talk about a lot of data, right? There is a lot of data put in front of people, in front of data analysts, HR analysts. Has that AI really helped really hone in what people need to focus on in terms of analyzing this data?
We like to say zero in.
Sorry,
for obvious reasons.
My apologies.
For obvious reasons. But yeah, it's used in a variety of ways in HR. From the employee's perspective, it's used in technology like chatbots, right, where people are trying to automate that interaction with the HR department by answering frequently asked questions and so on. And they're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to, help, hit those what's most frequently asked and so on. But from our perspective, where we engage with artificial intelligence and machine learning is taking the data to predict actions and future behavior. So retirement, predicting flight risk of employees, again, predicting attrition, predicting retirement risk and analyzing that retirement risk, predicting rising stars in the workforce, or the perfect match between applicants and job requisitions. So using past history to use that to make future decisions based on those trends and patterns that these algorithms find within the data itself.
Chris, you mentioned getting a seat at the table in the boardroom. Are HR managers, are people who are head of human resources getting a seat? Are boards listening? I hear it all the time, and you even said it yourself. Our biggest asset are our people.
Right.
Has that mindset really changed at the board level?
It's starting to much more over the, I know I'll say the past 10 years, but it has. So the evolution of the chief human resource officer within larger corporations, has opened that door and made that seat available. As a result, those persons are expected to be able to bring insights, to the board about the workforce and how it's affecting the outcomes of the business. So they have to talk the business or the language of business, and they're using analytics and data derived from that to speak that language. There are also additional movements that have been happening over the years. One has been with trying to get the language right. It's evolved out of IEEE actually, because that's where it got the most foothold. But it's designed for public companies to begin exposing their what they call human capital assets on their balance sheet, right? So there's actually been some recent movements on that with the SEC. They're making it optional right now, but that's their first step into it, where they're wanting to see not just the cost of the workforce, but how much they're investing in training and even some measures around diversity and inclusion.
Well, Chris, sounds absolutely fascinating. It sounds like things are moving at a very fast pace, especially with the work from home environment. But when we come back, we'll talk to Chris about practical applications, including retirement. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings in retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here, and if you're on Medicare, this is important. You're now entitled to eliminate copays and get dental care, dentures, eyeglasses, prescription coverage, in-home aids, unlimited transportation, and home-delivered meals, all at no additional cost. Plus, your zip code may have coverage with the Give Back benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month. Look, with the uncertainty of the virus and vaccines, you need to get everything you're entitled to. Here's the bottom line. Call to get significant benefits at no additional cost and see if your zip code has coverage with the Give Back benefit. Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline. You can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-924-3920. That's 1-800-924-3920.
Welcome back. We're talking to Chris Moore of Zeroed In. Chris, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Yeah, great to be with you. So
we talked about this big HR analytics industry, and it's really shifted into overdrive. Now let's talk about some of the practical aspects of it. And you mentioned in the first segment, you talked about retirement. How is this being used for predictive measurements of people retiring and getting ready to be replaced in the workforce?
Well, with the baby boomers reaching that time of their life when they're ready to retire, what the workforce has been preparing for this silver tsunami, as they call it. The economy and now COVID and its effects on the economy has really continued to delay that. So businesses need to evaluate their workforce and staffing levels, really to determine how likely and significant their operations are going to be affected by the retirement. Keeping older workers on staff is typically a good idea, right? But it also brings challenges such as keeping them up to date with new technology, paying for their increased healthcare costs, and that brings costs on the employer. To the average, research shows of about $50,000 per year. So if they're delaying retirement, for each person delaying retirement each year, it can cost them $50,000. Again, it's because they're paying higher salaries for those senior workers rather than hiring new or promoting employees at a lower salary. There's higher healthcare costs and benefit costs for those senior workers, even with supplemental plans for the ones who are eligible. So it's it's hard dollars. So what do they instinctively do, those employers? As a result of increased costs, well, they decrease healthcare benefits, they decrease retirement plan contributions from their side, they decrease funded life and disability insurance for their employees, they slow their raises, promotions, and hiring across their business. But at Zeroed In with our, using workforce and people analytics, there's a better way, right? So wise employers are using these technologies to make evidence-based decisions. They optimize their employee retirement strategies and their investments in their people, which again are one of their most valuable assets. So they're predicting and analyzing retirement risk. They're analyzing financial risks associated with things like leave and leave balances. They're analyzing the costs associated with those employee benefits. And as a result, it helps them, make better choices, in both the employees and the employers, in what plans are working and what plans those employees are seeing much more valuable to them.
Is there, I mean, that sounds amazing. And just being able to predict what you could expect in the future, I think would be very rewarding to human resources and management, just in terms of replacing people and or doing the right things to make changes in benefits. Chris, are you seeing, what's the evolution like of the HR manager? Are they becoming more data-driven data analysts? Is there a certain set of skills that they need to have to be able to parse through this data? It seems like that position, I think, as you alluded to in the first segment, has really changed, even at that lower level of human resources.
It has. In fact, there's a whole, there's a whole data acumen that employers have to adopt. There's some research. Deloitte has released some recent research on their people analytics maturity model that really talks about how about 70 to 80% of organizations get to what you might think of a level 2 out of 4 levels, and they hit a wall. And Deloitte did some research. Why are these employees not able to kind of cross the chasm, right, and get to that next level of maturity? And it really comes down to some of its culture, right? Some of the older businesses don't have a data-driven culture, or it's only in certain pockets. There is a data acumen that doesn't always exist in HR, but it's being built, right? So you're seeing HR analysts and the convergence of IT analysts come together to help use the data in a better way. There's actually 8 or 9 points. I won't go through all of them, but another one is there's this feeling and some truth to it that HR data is dirty, meaning it has data integrity problems, and that the root of that is that most of the HR data, from resumes to applicant tracking systems, it's in HR systems, it's all manually entered, right? So there's lots of inconsistencies on how things are coded, how things are typed in. We've worked with certain employers who almost have as many job titles as they do employees. So obviously something's wrong there in terms of data integrity. But through analytics and the processing behind that, companies like Zeroed In can clean that data, transform it, converge it with different processes, mainly the business systems, right? Productivity, sales, manufacturing, and really get to the heart of what employers are looking for, is to how to activate their workforce again so that it helps them meet their goals and the goals of their stakeholders and investors.
And Chris, I mean, we're not just talking about conglomerates and large corporations here. I mean, this is scalable. And by the way, we're not just talking about the private sector. This can be used for smaller businesses, which have a lot of succession risk, right? And people leaving, mm-hmm. But it can also probably be used for not-for-profits, which also have the same issues, and also governments. I would assume that this applies across all sectors of our economy.
It does. We work with large retailers. We work with state and municipals, city governments. Everybody has people, right? Everybody is experiencing the same challenge. The stakeholders may be different. Some may be constituents. Some may be stakeholders or shareholders, but it really runs the gamut. At the smaller level, those employers may not be investing, depending on how small they are. If they're between 2 to 50 employees, they may still be using spreadsheets. They may be using a payroll service and not using an HR system per se. But what becomes important to them, and where analytics comes into play, is benchmarking. Right? All small employers want to know, am I doing the right thing? And analytics helps bring benchmarks, around retirement, around retirement risk, around benefit expenditures, that help those smaller employers get feel better about the investments they're making because they're in line with the industry.
Yeah, data drives all that, and benchmarking, knowing what your competitors are doing, and to attract employees, very important. Well, Chris, we're going to have to leave it there. Fascinating topic. I always like a good discussion on data. I want to thank you so much for joining us on the program today, and we look forward to having you back in 2021.
Thanks for having us and zeroed in to help share the information.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest or someone you think we should talk to? Then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.